Type Network presents.
On this episode of Season 4, let's talk.
If you really want it, like you're so aware of who you are, what your strength is, what you want, then it kind of at the macro, right? Like at the macro, it kind of becomes the pure game of the game of self-domination, the game of managing your mind.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Rajiv Show, and I'm your host Rajiv Doreswamy, and this show aims to help reach out to those who are currently struggling in life and to remind you that life is indeed beautiful when you're inspired to make it your own. Alright folks, welcome back to another new episode. This episode is also an international episode, folks. My guest today is from Japan. You know, like I said, we're going international. And my guest today is Natsuney. Okay, Natsuney, how are you doing? How is everything over there?
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much for having me on your show. And I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm staying productive as much as possible. For my listeners, could you give a brief background about you?
Sure. So my name is Natsuney Otsuki. I'm a host at the Life Up Education TV, and I'm also the author of the book called The Game of Self-Domination. You can find both under lifeupeducationtv.com. And I'm also the startup owner in Tokyo, where I have a business called Foreign Connect, where I help Japanese businesses enter foreign market by connecting them with local partners, strategic partnerships. And before this, basically, I was working as a consultant, business consultant at the business consulting company for marketing. And I was helping companies to make sales, make marketing, and just, develop the distribution channels for those. And before that, I was studying business and economics, and I got my degree. Maybe I'm going like from vice versa from how I should have started my story, but basically my story is that I moved to the United States from Japan. Was born and raised in Japan. Decided to move when I was in still high school, and I finished my first a business degree there, and then I took some time off from school, and I decided to work for and with lots of entrepreneurs, advisors, investors in a technology area, and then from there I decided to pursue a degree in economics and ended up studying both business and economics. And then there I got that business consulting job, and then I worked on that, and then after that basically I came back to Japan and I decided to start my own business.
Awesome. Let's travel back in time with my next question. If you and I were high school, who were you in high school? Basically, if the main question is, are you an introverted kind of person? Are you a sports type of person? Are you in the books? Are you the popular one, or you're the person at the back of the class? Who are you if you and I were classmates?
Right. No, I think I was super weird kid. In a sense that I kind of mentioned this on my bio, but I almost got kicked out from high school. That's because, looking back at my life journey and just my personality in general, I have always been curious kid and courageous kid. So my fear of not fitting in, which is a number fear a lot of high schoolers have, was smaller than my fear of not being authentic to who I was, which was to be curious kid, right? So, to your point, I really didn't like the concept of fitting into one group or another group, but I was just fluid and curious and true to my curiosity. So it was so weird because I was neither the popular kid nor the nerd kid or whatever. I was look-wise, people kind of noticed me because I always like to present myself in a certain way, look-wise. Like looks has been something that I've been passionate about, like from very young age. So people noticed me. However, popular kids wouldn't hang out with me because I was also the kid who read like hundreds of books in a month. So I was the kid who was, looking like, I guess, quote unquote, like a popular sort of look, like, I guess, attention seeker looking. I don't know how you want to define it, but so outside I looked more like a, popular kid, whatever. But people didn't want to hang out with me because I was, in that sense, I was kind of weird because I read my book and I didn't interact with people. I just liked to learn, like, so I always had that gap. And sometimes I still kind of, people have that label on me just by looking at how I look and then make judgment based on that, just because, I'm into fashion and like do stuff that's not very particular to people, like with my personality. Like people sometimes get confused there, but that also helps me to be who I am. Like I cannot convince people to think certain way about me. The only way to show them is I'm just gonna be who I am and keep being who I am, and let that action be the material to make other people to decide who I am, and I have no interest in controlling other people's perception.
That's very powerful. That's powerful. Since you've mentioned personality wise, you don't like to build perception out of people. You don't want to have that perception of people. The next question is connected to who is your greatest motivator? Your top one, your number one greatest motivator, and why?
So, being surrounded by positive voice is very, very important, I personally believe. I guess positive voice is, I don't know if it's a right word, but basically your triggers, your emotional triggers, that's gonna make you want to dream, that's gonna make you want to push toward your dream, like feed your ambition. Like that kind of voice is very important. So I do look for them, but at the end I also noticed that I'm very self-motivated person, and I think that's one of the skills that you need to have as a leader. You need to have a very high standard, like at the end of the day, like to the position where you can rely on yourself to coming up with the motivations and narratives that's going to push you, regardless of whatever the environmental materials you have around you. I know this takes practice, and I know this takes work, efforts to get to this place, but I think at the end it's probably the strongest motivation, sustainable motivation you can have, if you are able to eventually get to the point where you don't need to rely on other people to pull you up. I kind of see it as my standard. Like it's not something nice to have. I don't see it as something nice to have. I see it as my standard. I need to have it, otherwise I would die. Like it's my survival skill.
Interesting. You are an interesting person. The next question, from being motivated, being self-motivated, what this is, I don't know if this is a personal question, but what made you who you are from the things that you've gone through? Now we're moving into where you are in the present day.
I can't really think of one particular event or time that shaped me of who I am. I think it's accumulation of things. There's a difference. Like I noticed that it's possible to create momentum and decisiveness in life, which is essentially what I talk about also in part of my book. But I think that momentum, or the core motivation of where that momentum comes from, really comes from your character, comes from your circumstances. That is a result of accumulation of all these different things that happen to your life, right? So to me, I can't really specify one destination that changed me for forever. And I generally don't believe in that concept at all, because my definition of success, for example, I don't see success as a destination to get to. I see success as a theme of life. I see success as a concept of life that you want to live on or live for. So you can never achieve success. Success is an inspiration that's always exists in the future. You don't look back whatever you already achieved in the past and you say, I'm so excited, I'm so driven by what I've already accomplished, right? Like, you're not excited by that anymore. You're excited for the possibility that's going to happen in the future. So with that concept, I don't necessarily try to get to one point, but rather I see it as more like a accumulation of things and journey that's going to build my character to get, to keep having the inspiration to live for.
This is some powerful stuff. I mean, I'm feeling your vibes right now. I'm feeling that fire and that energy that you have.
Nice. I'm smiling. Yeah.
Yeah. From the last question, we were talking about present, right? Now let's since we spoke about high school and saying and now present, the next question is connected to, if today was yesterday or in the past,
Yeah.
what would you keep and what would you let go of in that journey? So from there to where you are, what would you keep with you and what would you let go of?
Like, honestly, once again, I think this just comes natural to me. It's part of my thinking process, is that I just don't agree with the concept of dwelling on yesterday. I just don't spend zero time on thinking back. Like, I'm always living for the future. I don't spend much time thinking about what's already happened in the past, whether it's success or failure. Because the thing is, even if it's successful event, like if you keep spending time around that, you become soft. And when the moment you become soft, you lose. You become entitled, you become like granted for things you already have. And the moment you let that happen, you lose. Like, you become too soft to take hit, like in the future, right? Like for tomorrow. So I don't believe in spending time looking back. And then I guess the other side of it is dwelling on your losses and failures, right? And the thing is, there's no alternative. Like, you did what you did, and that's it. That's the reality. You cannot go back to your past and change it, right? Like, it's just impossible to do that physically. So why do you spend time dwelling and bitching on things that's already happened that you didn't do or you did do? But I think I find it much more productive if you are able to gain the courage to just accept whatever it is right now and just go with that. Pick yourself up from that and then go start from where you are today, So I guess to your point, my answer to that is, I just generally don't spend time thinking about like what would happen to me if I did this or if I didn't do that. Like, I have no interest in spending time on that, but rather I'm just fully pleasant with where I am today, and I'm just really grateful about everything I have. And if it means that if I'm gonna be forced to lose whatever I have right now, I'm just gonna be able to be thankful for having whatever I had for how long ever I had and just move forward.
Interesting. I never thought of it like that. Sometimes the people that I've met over the years, they have that emotional connection. Hence the question is that there's always that attachment, and somehow they use it as a burning fuel to keep them, But it's interesting how you take your take is very strong, is very powerful. And
Thank you.
and since you've mentioned a lot about the future, the next question now is pertaining to the future. This question is either your perception of the coming future or your future for that matter. And the question is, what are your thoughts for the future?
My future, well, I defer the word future as in my inspiration. I think what I'm really interested in or what I'm really inspired by is the possibility comes with the future, the concept of future. Like, I mean, look how far we came as a humanity. Look how far we came as a human species. And just by thinking about that really makes me excited. Like, be really inspired by how capable we are, and that's what I'm inspired by. And as in the actual time frame of future, I mean, the idea of future definitely excites me, but that's more of because it's attaching to the idea of possibility. And I don't necessarily know what's gonna happen, like I don't try to predict what's gonna happen. And I think, once again, predicting also suffocate, like, I guess predicting doesn't work in an advantage sometimes, I think, like, because people have prediction and assumption or expectation necessary. I think that sometimes works in disadvantage. So once again, I'm fully present of where I am, and I'm like fully, my signal is at the full, like, I guess my signal is always like standing at the full potential, right? So I'm gonna try my best to catch what's popping right now at the present, and then kind of like, if I see opportunity, I'm gonna explore it kind of position. But I don't necessarily try to predict something in the future, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. Since you've mentioned already, I don't think we're gonna get into that segment anymore, which is what inspires you. You've already mentioned what inspires you is the future itself. Um, my we're gonna talk a little.
Possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that we're gonna talk about now is there any motivational quotes, either from you, from family members, or from influencers that you live by every day when you wake up? There's this quote that you run through your head, and then something to start you off for the day, like a philosophy or a motivational quote that leads you. Is there anything?
Well, I mean, I follow many people. Like, obviously, I follow Tony Robbins. I follow Gary Vee. I follow who else? Jay Shetty. I follow Tom Bilyeu. I like really many people, and I think the reason I do that is because like connection. Like you listen to their voices, and then really challenges you of your belief, and then really like have friends on the side of you, like, I mean, I guess like you have this constant fear, or the media in the world constantly telling you the negative stories that's happening around the world. It's very important that you intentionally search for the voice that tells you otherwise. And the voice of these people really helps me to hear that message, So yeah, I do listen to many. Yeah.
Is there one particular
specific person?
Yeah. One particular one?
Shit. I mean, everybody's so great. I don't know. Well, I guess in terms of like life lesson that I live by still a lot right now at the macro, I would say that Aristotle's, the Greek philosopher, where he explained what happiness is, which is ultimately the definition of happiness is virtue activities of the soul. So meaning that only by overcoming your hardships and adversities in life, you are able to meet your true potential. So I'm gonna try to visualize it as how it means. So basically, we are driven by two different motivators. One is a reward, another one is a threat. And we tend to put those two things in the other side of the spectrums, right? But according to his definition, it's actually going to the same side. Leeward is the extension of what you would find by, I guess, facing toward your fear, facing toward your threat. By overcoming your threat, you will meet your leeward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Before we get into our favorite segments, which is entrepreneurship, since you mentioned earlier that you're an entrepreneur, we're gonna have a short break, and we'll be right back after this short break. This episode is sponsored by Dulce House, the online shop for your guilty pleasure. Use the promo code PIPE to buy chocolate chip cookies, Oreo cheesecake cookies, and other baking goodies. The promo code is PIPE. Go to the link in the description to find out more.
If you want to learn something new or useless about the world around you, why don't you try listening to the Banyu podcast Reflushed on Spotify, Anchor, or any podcast app that you use?
Economy in her own way. So the first question in entrepreneurship is that when you're getting into entrepreneurship, what is that psychological element that hits you first before deciding, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur?
I would say psychological element that hits you first.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a constant battle with your self-doubts.
Yeah.
Like I always explain this like this. It's never about managing your time or managing your tasks. It's always about managing your mind, because every morning you will wake up with stress and anxiety. There's a lot of motivation or triggers for you as a business owner and worries for you as a business owner that you can face every morning. So when you're faced with that, it's really not about managing your time or tasks, but it's also about, mostly about managing your mind. Like how can you create narratives and story around your anxiety or around your gravity that could turn this into something productive. So I always say this to people is that, don't try to manage your time or tasks, but rather try to manage your mind and be very resourceful about any problems you face around having a business. Because in the end, I think that's what it comes down to, is if you really want it, like you're so aware of who you are, what your strength is, what you want, then it kind of, at the macro, right? Like at the macro, it kind of becomes the pure game of self-domination, the game of managing your mind.
Interesting. And working with a lot of people, you mentioned also earlier that you've worked a lot with a lot of people in America. You've worked with a couple of entrepreneurs as well. Was it a little bit intimidating with the perception when you were working with them? Were they through culturally sensitive when they were working with you? And was that
So this is a very interesting question for me, because this is part of the reason why I named my book as the game of self-domination, because domination is a very strong word, right? But I intentionally wanted to use this word because I think in America, I kind of let people walk all over me, because I was such a nice, soft Japanese young woman, I came across very respectful and soft and female, right? So there's a lot of, I guess, social profile at surface level that, I guess, white male dominated society or environment would label me as someone you are okay to walk over on, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So I felt like I kind of let people to define my value. I kind of let people to define even what I want, because I didn't raise my voice a lot about, like, to basically claim who I am, what I'm worth, and everything like that. Like, I think it was part of me knew that, I mean, I'm a pretty dominant person in general, in life, especially because I like to be creative, and for you to be creative, you kind of have to be hard and not soft and be dominant, right? So I already had that potential, but I wasn't living my virtue. I wasn't living by my virtue. I wasn't testing my virtue, so it just really didn't feel right for me, So that is why, like, to some degree, I definitely notice how important it is to show up as basically dominant figure to some level to people around you, also to kind of show them that you are the boss. So there's that element of, like, show yourself that you're the leader. Like, don't let people to oppress you, so that's the kind of impression that I wanted to create with the game of self-domination.
And wow, that's at least there is you have to be a lot more powerful in term, even when the biggest odds are thing. It's like surfing on the biggest waves. I don't know if you agree with me. Mostly, especially when you're traveling into another world and another realm, because this is also my in my experience also when I went to India. It was like time traveled into another dimension where the culture was much more different than thing. So that cultural play is really an interesting thing. And
Yeah, definitely.
adjusting, I think adjusting was the toughest part, I guess. I don't know if you agree with me.
Yeah, well, adjusting part actually came very natural to me. But yeah, at some point it did get hard, because I think what was hard for me was that I didn't have any friends or connection, or I didn't know anyone. But then I had to face this transition that I was changing my life at that time, right? Like, I had to build something out of nothing. So that was very hard, that I didn't have any, like, emotionally connected person around me who was supporting me.
Oh, it is really truly all about the mind. That's been the
Yeah.
whole. That's the if you were to summarize everything that you've said, it's really the umbrella of the umbrellas. That it's all about the mind and how you really dominate the mind.
Yeah,
Eh,
definitely.
And with that conversation, if people want to connect with you via social media, how do they connect with you via social media?
Yeah, so Foreign Connect is more of a B2B services, but if anyone, I guess, wanna expand business in Japan, you can search me under foreignConnect.org. Life Up Education TV, you can search me. My website is lifeupeducationtv.com. I'm also on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, pretty much every social platforms, and you can find me under Life Up Education TV.
Awesome. And with that, I think we've learned a lot. I mean, it's been an educational conversation, Natsune. I gotta say.
Wow, perfect. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
you are a powerful influencer, and somewhere deep down inside, I'm sure you're going to go change the world because you are a futurist, and I'm looking forward to see what change you can create in Japan. And I'm a fan.
Oh, thank you.
I am a fan, and I'm raising up my hand and saying I'm a fan. I can't wait to see what other stuff you're gonna share to the world, and I do believe that you are changing the world in your own small way.
Thank you
With
very much. I really appreciate it.
with that in mind, thank you again for for coming to my show. Thank you so much for educating my listeners. And I'm looking forward to collaborating with you as well soon. And
Mhm.
thank you so much for coming to the show. It's a huge honor. I know you're a very, very busy lady. And thank you again. Very, very huge thank you.
Yeah. Thank
Uh,
you very much. I'm very grateful. Thank you so much.
yeah. And for my listeners, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will see you in the next episode.